The New York Times has now given us 10 healthy tips to eat better in 2025. Are they valid? Let's find out. Number one of the top tips from the New York Times says there's a heart-healthy diet that virtually no one follows. It's called the DASH diet. Well, people say, what in the heck is a DASH diet? It's dietary approaches to stop hypertension. Actually, it does make sense because hypertension is one of the consequences of insulin resistance. So really the DASH diet is a insulin resistance reduction diet. That makes a little more sense. Is it the best? Probably not. The Mediterranean diet is a better diet, but what about one that's even better than the Mediterranean diet? It's called the Zone diet. Here's another tip from the New York Times, saying influencers, bloggers, are saying that the vegetable oils rich in omega-6 fatty acids are poisoning us. Well, the answer is partially true and partially false. Now, are they poisoning us? No. By making toxins? No, they're not causing that. However, they are causing inflammation, which is vastly more dangerous. So yes, in 2025, reduce the levels of omega-6 fatty acids in your diet and replace them with omega-3 fatty acids. You will reduce inflammation, and that's a way to live longer and live better. What about taking magnesium? It's supposed to help us. Does it or not? Well, the answer is yes. Why I say yes? Because magnesium is a cofactor in over 300 different enzymatic actions in our body, and means if we don't have adequate levels of magnesium in our diet, then our enzymes are not going to work very well, and our metabolism will be disrupted as a consequence. Do you need to load up large amounts of magnesium? No. But again, making sure you get adequate levels, usually by eating vegetables, which most people don't, is a really good idea for 2025. Are sweet potatoes good for you? Well, the word sweet says they're probably not. However, there's a way, if you really want sweet potatoes, they can be working to your benefit. Cook a sweet potato and then let it cool overnight in the refrigerator. What happens, the starch in the potato transforms itself into what is called resistant starch. And that basically is more slowly absorbed and has significant health benefits. So if you're going to eat potatoes, make sure they're sitting in the refrigerator overnight before you do so. The next tip from the New York Times, people say perhaps we should eat more shellfish in 2025. Not a bad idea because they are good sources of protein. They're not very good sources of fat. Why? Because they're low in omega-6 and also low in omega-3 fatty acids. Then you have a problem of where the shellfish are coming from. Most shellfish, like shrimp, are now basically being farmed raised in probably locations that don't have the best sanitary conditions. Our next tip, surprisingly, we hear about ultra-processed foods as being the bane of Western civilization. But that's actually a bad rap. And the reason is because some ultra-processed foods are actually quite healthy for us. Let me give you one example. It's called Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt, basically the more Greek yogurt you consume, the more you lower the risk of diabetes. That's a good ultra-processed foods. Now, most ultra-processed foods, the things you find in the supermarkets, are just pathetic. Stay away from them. But basically, ultra-processed foods, if they're basically now being able to make your metabolic pathways work more effectively, can be a great boon for wellness for 2025. Moving on. We talk about basically sugar saying it's going to cause cavities. It's going to make you fat. Both of those are true, but it will also make you sick and dumb. Now, why do I make that statement? Because when you consume too much sugar, you basically inactivate, you inhibit the master regulator of your metabolism. That's what keeps us alive. That's what keeps us healthy. So the more sugar you eat, it tastes sweet, but basically you're shortening your lifespan as a consequence. Number 8, we hear a lot about alcohol today, not its benefits, but always negative consequences. And that's true. One of the areas that alcohol consumption can hurt is really gut health. Why? It's a toxin. So if you're worried about gut health, what's the right amount of alcohol to drink? 0. Here's another one. We often say, how should we eat? Perhaps the celebrities will tell us how to eat. Maybe musicians like Bruce Springsteen who eats only one meal per day. Well, is it a good idea? Scientifically, not. Because you're eating one meal and you're likely to overconsume calories because that's your only source for the day. Now, what happens when you eat too many calories in any one meal? You cause inflammation. And finally, number 10. We often hear about basically eating too many carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrates, being adverse to our health. Well, that's quite true. So what about going back to eating ancient grains? Perhaps they're better. Yes, they had a little more protein, they had a little more fiber, and probably a better balance of carbohydrates. However, they're still carbohydrate rich. So if you want better health in 2025, here's my suggestion. Eat more fruits and vegetables.